secured future government contracts. A bribery probe has been opened, but Trump's Department of Justice now has said that they are shutting down such an investigation. The Donald Trump administration has ended the U.S. annual report on food insecurity and hunger in America. It comes after 2.5 months from Donald Trump signing into law a tax and spending bill sharply reducing the number of Americans receiving food. Tens of thousands of protesters have taken the streets across Brazil to protest a congressional bill that would make it harder to charge lawmakers for alleged crimes and even reduce penalties for individuals involved in former President Jair Bolsonaro's coup attempt. Bolsonaro was sentenced earlier this month to 27 years in prison for trying to cling to power and for hatching a plan to assassinate his opponent, Lula da Silva, the current president of Brazil, and who won a 2022 presidential election. Maria Alice Barbosa, a student in Rio de Janeiro, said, "I think this amnesty for Bolsonaro is ridiculous because these are people who harmed Brazilian society, the Brazilian people. As citizens, we have to be here fighting, speaking out, showing our faces. People can't hide if we don't want them to repeat what happened in the past. As young people, we need to keep this in mind so people know their rights and can fight for them." And those are the stories we're following for you here on Radio Havana Cuba. Thanks for tuning in on this Tuesday. Keep it locked into RHC Radio, Havana Cuba. In 1973, Chilean poet, writer, and politician Pablo Neruda died in Chile. The winner of the Nobel Prize for Literature in 1971, Pablo Neruda wrote a variety of styles, including surrealistic poems, historical epics, and overtly political manifestos. In one of his collections, 28 love poems and a song of despair was written back in 1924. Colombian novelist Gabriel Garcia Marquez once called Neruda the greatest poet of the 20th century in any language. Neruda was a member of the Communist Party of Chile and was a close advisor to Chile's president, Salvador Allende, a member of the Socialist Party, from 1970 to 1973. Neruda was hospitalized with cancer at the time of the bloody military coup supported by the United States and the CIA and led by Augusto Pinochet. On September the 23rd, 1973, Neruda died at the age of 69 from prostate cancer at his home in Isla Negra. Pinochet, backed by elements of the armed forces, allowed permission for Neruda's funeral to be made a public event. However, tens of thousands of grieving Chileans disobeyed the curfew and flooded the streets on this date, 52 years from today. And it is the International Day Against the Exploitation and Trafficking of Women and Children. That day, established by the United Nations, calls on governments and society to take action to stop the exploitation of women and children. Today and every September the 23rd, International Day Against Exploitation and Trafficking of Women and Children. And you're listening to Radio Havana Cuba, our English language broadcast, our first hour here on the radio. So we're now to the editorial desk for Commentary and Viewpoint.
Including effectiveness in treating the abated population. President Declaration of our nation moved forward to inherit new trust confidence and announcing the talks with Cuba to apply specialized treatment to diabetic food condition. The president of the war in diabetes is a growing concern from Mexico's health authorities, having interest in methods she described as innovative and successful. Cuba is the only country with that institution, which has carried previous rules as applied to the States, referring to the groundbreaking solution developed by Havana Center for Generating Genomic and Biotechnology, recognized as unique and effective in treating diabetic food ulcers. Cuban experts highlight that this solution condition is one of the most common neurovascular complications of education. Targets from the islands brought to a place of older benefits, starting from benefits unrelated undetectable formula were used in modern food conflict. Specialists know that the treatment promotes rapid tissue regeneration and faster healing compared to conventional methods. This allows patients to quickly return to their social activities, a real benefit from diabetic populations affect between 5% and 5% of people who are in it. Diabetes, a chronic condition currently impacting more than 500 million people, and its mortality rate has risen by 30% in just a decade. These obesity classified as student living with the disease, while grateful to their scientists and doctors in the technical care they receive. But more than all, it is encouraging that schools in Mexico are now planning to put the diabetes, which is considered highly important, amid raising cases of diabetic food complications. While the guidelines for Mexico's application to food medication, President Sheinbaum was saying this, people can say whatever they want, but the truth is, their health and affairs in our country.
Planetary viewpoint for the day, coming editorial list. You tune in Radio Havana Cuba, our English-only project, but you can't pick us up real good. That happens sometimes when you're shortwave radio. Atmospheric conditions lead to nothing. You can't get us. Or you get us all week. Come in and listen to us on the internet. That's right. You can go to our webpage, www.radiohc.cu. That's the World Wide Web. www.radiohc.cu. There's a little thing you'll see that says Escúchanos en vivo in Spanish, in the blue box. And it's down toward the bottom, I think. And click on that, and you'll come popping on the speakers. Escúchanos en vivo means listen to us live. And that's what you're doing. Right here. Radio Havana Cuba, whether it's on the shortwave or on our webpage, streaming audio live on the web. Next week's the weekly program, Connecting the Dots.
Hello, welcome back to Connecting the Dots, an informative space to learn about the politics, science, and society. My name is Jose. Don't go away, we are starting.
And you switch your back on morning, and you kiss me like you want it.
What's up on Trump's administration this week? New York Times, Metaverse.
So Zionism is, simply put, the right of the Jewish people to self-determination in their ancient Israel. That's what it is. Anti-Zionism is the belief that Jews do not have that.
I talked to a lot of different people, and one of the things I heard is that anti-Zionism for them is a desire to have the rights of Palestinians be equal to the rights of Jews in Israel and the Palestinian territory. Is that definition of anti-Zionism to you anti-Semitic?
If you believe that only Jewish people don't have the right to self-determination, that's anti-Semitic, because it's holding out Jews to double standards they don't accord to other people.
If someone defines their view of anti-Zionism in a way that allows for Jews to exist in a state of Israel but that grants Palestinians rights, but you're saying that is anti-Semitic, people don't feel like they have the space to have a different view without being tagged with something that is pretty clear.
Well, look, in fairness, I can appreciate that for some people, this idea is an abstraction. Anti-Zionism, it means such and such to me. Let me tell you, anti-Zionism doesn't mean to me that what it results in. It's related to trying to burn down the governor's mansion before receiving in the president's quote position on Palestine. It is, again, firebombing elderly people because you want to, quote, end all Zionists.
In talking to
Okay, that's what we're doing.
Goodbye. starting with the idea that that is the way that they feel that everyone should have rights in Israel and Palestine and Palestinian territories, to then extrapolate that they are somehow connected to murder, arson.
That's kind of a sleight of hand, but not.
No, but I'm really not trying to do a sleight of hand. I'm just trying to understand. You say that anti-Zionism leads to, that is the inevitable sort of end to this kind of belief. And so I think what people will say who might hold that belief is that is a sort of exaggeration and sleight of hand, because they don't want the annihilation of Jews.
They might not want that. They might not understand what it means. They might not be steeped in the context. All I know is the thousands and thousands of people who contact us because they have been, as I've described already, targeted and victimized. Not because of what they believe, but because of the world.
Okay, that's all for today. Remember, this is Connect with the Dots from Radio Havana Cuba. Goodbye.
Thanks. That's all Havana Connecting the Dots. Heard every Tuesday, right here on Radio Havana Cuba.
Welcome to Havana Portraits, where Havana's culture and history meet to bring you closer to this magical city. And today I'm gonna tell you about the relationship between Ernest Hemingway and our island, a sort of guide to follow his footsteps if ever in Cuba. Let's go. Ernest Hemingway first arrived in Havana in 1928 in the company of his second wife, Pauline Piper. He was not here long, but enough to realize the city had a lot to offer to him. It was in this first visit that he realized he loved fishing from Cuba, and he was in love with the sea. He did not return to Cuba until 1932, 40 years after his first visit, but from that point on, Havana would become a permanent location for the American Piper. He settled in Ambos Mundos Hotel in the corner of Obispo Boulevard and Mercaderes Street, one of old Havana's most famous. Room 511, the one with the best view in the building, was his residence as he went on constant speeches in the yacht Pilar. His first writing about Havana would be a chronic for Esquire magazine, but his first fictional writing about Cuba was actually the only short story he did about it, and it was called No One Ever Dies. One of his best works, For Whom the Bells Toll, was written mostly in Cuba between 1939 and 1940. He sailed here and made his last long stay in Ambos Mundos Hotel after he was done covering the Spanish Civil War and during his final separation from Pauline Piper, triggered by his relationship with Martha Gellhorn, who joined him in Havana and was the center for him to write For Whom the Bells Toll. Hemingway and Martha Gellhorn rented the property of Finca Vigía in 1940, and later on he bought it thanks to the money made by his book, For Whom the Bell Tolls. The hill upon which Finca Vigía is located used to be a watch post for the Spanish military until the last years of the 19th century, and that's where the name comes from. Vigía means watchman. In 1889, Spanish architect Miguel Pascual Baguer built himself a farmer house there, which would have several owners over the years until Gellhorn found it on the newspaper. The property covers 4 hectares, and it's rich in vegetable species. It holds the house, a bungalow, a tower, a pool, and Hemingway's yacht, Pilar. The main room of the house was the place to receive all the famous personalities that visited Hemingway, which were not few. The house also has a library with more than 9,000 books, a dining room, and a study, which Hemingway never used as such, all decorated with hunting trophies. In 1947, Mary Welch, his first wife, had the idea of building a 3-floor tower in the back of the house. The first one was the home for dozens of cats that lived in the property, and it's now a gallery. The second floor was used to store traveling and fishing albums, and nowadays it is used to showcase Hemingway's passion for fishing. And the third floor was thought by Mary as a study for her husband's writing, but he never used it as such. Everyone had to be quiet in Finca Vigía in the mornings because that is when he liked to do his writing. There, he would put works directly on his riding machine, standing, shirtless and barefoot. Curiously, the property was used 5 years ago to shoot a film about Hemingway's life. The movie was called Papa, and it was the first Hollywood film shot in Cuba in over 40 years. This property is a museum since the 1960s, and it's the best place in the country to get in touch with Papa. The house museum is preserved exactly as it was when he left for the last time in 1959, when he was already in the mental state which would take him to suicide. After World War II, Hemingway spent a lot of time in Havana. He began his periods of depression, particularly after several personal issues. In Finca Vejía, he began writing 2 novels, The Garden of Eden, which would be published after his death, and The Sea Book, one he did not finish, but was the base of his classic The Old Man and the Sea, for which he won a Pulitzer, and after which he was given the Nobel Prize for Literature. There are other places people visit to connect with the literary genius. Going east from the Bay of Havana, you can get to Cojima, a former fisherman's village where Papa spent a lot of time. Fishermen who did not hang out with him because he was a famous writer, since most of them had never read a book in their lives, but because they fished and drank together. Since 1937, the head of his yacht, Pilar, was Gregorio Fuentes, a Cojima original who knew Papa very well. And he actually died in 2002 at age 112. After Papa himself died, the fishers from Cojima made a collect and had a statue of Hemingway built in their village, his village, the one that inspired his classic, The Old Man and the Sea. In Old Havana, Papa immortalized 2 bars with a single phrase and a lot of visits. My mojito at La Bodeguita and my daiquiri at Floridita. Those 2 bars are nowadays some of the most popular in the city. At Floridita, there's even a statue of Hemingway. Back in the years when he frequented them, people would go just to try and see him, and perhaps get in an autograph. Room 511 on the Ambos Mundos Hotel is also a museum, although the best one is for sure Finca Vejía. This is just a bit. There's much more to learn about Hemingway's times in Cuba, and countless anecdotes and stories. But that's about it for today. We've been learning a lot more about Hemingway's times in Havana. And this has been, of course, Havana Portraits, where you can always learn a little bit more about the Cuban capital. I am Daniel Montero. Take care.
Coming up next, we've got some cultural elements. It's the Arts Roundup.
Hi there, welcome to the edition of the Arts Roundup here on Radio Havana Cuba. I'm your host, Elena Valverde. Stay tuned. Singer-songwriter Silvio Romero began his Latin American tour in Havana as announced, and to no one's surprise, at the University of Havana, was filled to capacity with fans eager to hear and support the legendary trovador. Cubans and foreigners of all ages crowded the statues, moved to tears and check out in the emotion of an artist who on Friday night once again demonstrated that his music is universal, transcending geographical, political, and generational borders. Cuban president Miguel Díaz-Canel was among the attendees at the concert. This newly launched tour will first take the renowned artist, the composer of classics like Ojalá, El International, and La Masa, to Chile, where he has performed since 2018. It will then continue in order to Argentina, Uruguay, Peru, and Colombia, with specific days in each country still to be announced. This marks Silvio's first return to Latin American stages since 2022. when he concluded a teaching tour with a performance in Mexico City's Zocalo Square for over 100,000 people. Prior to that, he had completed a decade-long tour with more than 100 concerts held in underserved neighborhoods across Cuba. The founding member of the Cuban Nueva Travel Movement, Silvio Rodriguez, participated in the seminal 1968 concert that launched the genre, alongside other iconic musicians like Pablo Milanés, Roy Nicola, Martín Rojas, Eduardo Ramos, Vicente Feliu, and Pedro Luis Ferrer. With a discography of over 20 albums spanning nearly 6 decades, the singer-songwriter released his latest studio album, Quería Saber, I Wanted to Know, in 2024. It features 11 tracks with the characteristic, intimate, and socially conscious lyrics, all delivered through his signature voice. De Che del Río Paraná hacia la maestra Baile Sosa, Avis Cucú y Solán González is a later publication honoring the legacy of Argentine Cuban guerrilla commander Ernesto Navarro de la Serna, founded by the Martí Association of Cuban Society and Economy. The text was launched at the Plaza de la Libertad in the Cuban capital. During the presentation, Solán González noted that the book contains just from his personal archives, compiled 3 years of research in Argentina, Bolivia, Chile, Peru, Colombia, Venezuela, Costa Rica, Guatemala, and Panama. He stated that the work offers insight into how Che Guevara acquired his profound knowledge and understanding of Latin America. The authors extended their gratitude to Cuban economist Humberto Pérez, the Cuban embassy in Panama, and the Martí Association of Cuban Society in Panama for facilitating what they called this talk to the Cuban and Panamanian people. The Santa Clara College for Training in the Arts and Crafts of Restoration, dedicated to serving children in the Caribbean, was recently inaugurated in the Cuban capital, a project made possible through international cooperation. The main partners of the Office of the Historian of the City of Havana undersigned these, the city's largest and oldest convent, were the UFO UNESCO, the Italian Agency for Development Cooperation, and the Italo-Latin American Organization. The Italian ambassador to Cuba, Lorenzo Villano, expressed pride in supporting the restoration and creation of the Santa Clara College. The restoration, which is not yet fully complete, has overcome numerous challenges thanks to the commitment and expertise of all the participating partners. Anne Lamastre, director of the UNESCO Regional Office in Havana, echoed these sentiments, thanking everyone involved in recovering this heritage jewel to put it at the service of training young people, the creative economy, and sustainable development, a vision central to UNESCO's mission, she said. Isabel Brillante Pedrosa, ambassador of the European Union in Cuba, emphasized that the Santa Clara College is not just an institution located in North Havana, the heart of the World Heritage Site, but it also aims to become a highly specialized center of excellence. The college is part of the Caribbean Cultural Training Hub, an initiative created by the French Cultura program to promote training and professional development for young people in the Caribbean's cultural and creative sectors. driving sustainable development in the region. Ballet Nacional de Cuba made its first ever appearance in Denmark, the performance already being hailed as one of the company's most significant in recent decades. The company itself described the Saturday night show at Copenhagen's Royal Theatre as a resounding success. They performed the classic Don Quixote, a ballet renowned for its technical difficulty and interpretive richness. Principal dancers Annette Delgado and Daniel Hernandez performed roles of Kitri and Basilio, activating the audience with a force blend of love, jealousy, and humor. Under the direction of Lindsay Valdez, different principal couples performed in subsequent shows. On Sunday, Gabriela Duyet and Angela Montero danced the matinee, while Greta Morejon and Jean-Pierre Vasquez starred in the evening performance. The production of Don Quixote, presented by Ballet Nacional de Cuba, reflected the music of Ludwig Mingus. It features choreography by Alicia Alonso, Marta Garcia, and Maria Elena Llorente, based on the original by Maria Spitska and a version by Alexander Korsky. The libretto and the set and costume designs are by Salvador Fernandez, drawing from various episodes of Miguel de Cervantes Saavedra's novel. Havana hosts the 37th International Bolero Theater Festival from October 2nd through the 5th, a must-attend event for aficionados of the genre. This year's festival will be dedicated to the 95th birthday of iconic singer Omar Portuondo and the 75th anniversary of Cuban tradition, celebrating the enduring power of the bolero as a cherished sonic and cultural heritage of Cuba and Latin America. Organized by the Association of Musicians of the Association of Writers and Artists, the festival will feature Cuban, Mexican, Venezuelan, and Argentine artists. The diverse program includes galas, colloquiums, intimate concerts, and live music sessions. At a press conference held at the UNIAC's Rubén Martínez Villena Hall, Maestro José Arguello highlighted the festival's deep connection to Cuban musicology, rooted in the intellectual and cultural foundations laid by figures like Artemio León. He emphasized León's rigorous study and integrative vision of Afro-Cuban instrumental music, which were instrumental in making the bolero recognized as art and heritage. Manuel Garcia, the Association of Musicians of UNIAC, noted the significance of these being the first edition since the bolero's practice was declared an intangible cultural heritage of humanity by UNESCO. The festival will also pay tribute to other essential figures of the genre, including Manuel Corona, Ernesto Lecuona, Barbarito Díaz, Paulina Álvarez, Moraima Secada, and Adolfo Guzmán. The festival's international colloquium, a key academic component, will feature 2 days of panels on October 2nd and 3rd, coordinated by Lourdes González Royo, President of the Academic Committee. The colloquium will bring together composers, record producers, musicians, collectors, researchers, and community leaders, and especially the draft to prepare the successful nomination file for UNESCO. Discussions will cover the bolero's presence in media and its relationship with the music industry. Demonstration classes will bridge theory and practice, and audiovisual materials like the documentary Voces del Feeling Rosalía Arnaiz and Marilu Malucias will be screened. Brother Festival program includes 3 thematic panels at the National Theatre's Coronarias Hall. Momentos del Bolero, Omar de Cuba, and La Música de Adolfo Guzmán. Young bolero performers will take stage at the America Theater, and homages will be paid to composers Lecuona and Corona, alongside other celebrated musicians. And that's all for now on the Arts Roundup here on Radio Havana Cuba. Until next time.
Cultural news with the Arts Roundup. We're almost out of time for today, but we still have time for some of our headline news stories with a news bulletin.
Cuba has denounced the ongoing U.S. military presence in the Caribbean, characterized the action as a social threat to regional peace, security, and stability. This was stated by the island's foreign minister, Bruno Rodriguez Parrilla, when delivering a speech on Monday at the Conference of Foreign Ministers of the Community of Latin American and Caribbean States, CELAC, held at the United Nations headquarters in New York. Rodriguez Parrilla insisted that such a move is a provocative action that could trigger a military confrontation, compelling Venezuela and other nations to safeguard their sovereignty and territorial integrity. He stressed that the U.S. allegations aiming to link the legitimate government of Venezuela and its constitutional president, Nicolás Maduro Moros, to criminal organizations involved in illegal drug trafficking constitute an unfounded and preposterous pretext. He conveyed Cuba's commitment to continuing to collaborate with CELAC efforts to foster progress in areas of mutual interest for the benefit of our population. In this regard, the head of Cuban diplomacy emphasized the need for CELAC to further solidify its role as a unified group representing the interests of the Latin American and Caribbean nations. On the same lines, he emphasized that addressing issues affecting the region, including the threat of xenophobic and racist policies towards migration, illegal drug trafficking, trade, and terrorist threats, as well as climate change, requires collective and coordinated efforts. This approach, he said, should be rooted in dialogue, non-interference in internal affairs of states, cooperation, solidarity, and respect for sovereignty. In the government of La Paz, September 2006, the destination Gaviota Tourist Exchange, a key event in the promotion of hiking across the island. This was formally announced by the president of the Gaviota Tourism Group, Carlos Atur, during the closing ceremony of the federal edition. According to the website www.bio26.cu, 2026 will mark a significant year for Guatemala, as it will host the International Tourism Fair at the beginning of May, followed by the Tourist Exchange, both of which are major tourism events in Cuba. The representative from the Ministry of Tourism in La Paz, Luis Martinez, said that this event will serve as an excellent platform to showcase not only the region, but also the dedication of a tourist destination undergoing transformation. Working for performers to reduce the language addressed on Monday artificial intelligence in Lebanon, a lecture delivered by researcher Ana Hernandez of Casa Las Americas. Hernandez serves as a professor at the University of Havana's Faculty of Communication and as the vice president of the Cuban Society of Information Sciences. She emphasized that the field of artificial intelligence has undergone a significant diversification, although it remains in its early stages. She also says that this analysis in deep learning programs constitute a revolution, impacting not just technology but also culture. In this regard, she warned that in the 21st century, we must learn to handle an extraordinary array of subjects. This is not just about acquiring new kind of knowledge, skill, or expertise. Rather, it encompasses a real sense, including digital and AI proficiency. The researcher returns from the United Nations Development Program, the IPA, and the CELAC to explore the transformative potential of digital technologies. Regarding Cuba, Hernandez noted that the IPA report indicates that out of the 9,200 non-languages in the country, only 724 have internet access. Consequently, the adoption of AI remains limited despite its high impact. She emphasized the urgent need to incorporate AI into educational curricula at every level. It is also crucial to provide training in digital technologies for people of all ages, particularly in light of the Caribbean nation's development of its first AI initiative known as Cecilia. The 8th International Colloquium from Papyrus to the Virtual Library will be held on September 26th, serving as a platform for information professionals from around the world to discuss the impact of digital technology. Cuba and Brazil will inaugurate in Havana today the parliamentary forum dedicated to the discussion of public policies, programs, and strategies related to social protection, conformity, and nutritional security. The two-day forum is aimed at fostering cooperation and outlining a tangible agenda for South-South cooperation. Senior officials from Brazil will be attending the event, including Paulo de Esteira, the Minister of Agrarian Development and Farming of the country, Wellington Diaz, the Minister of Development, Social Assistance, Family and the Fight Against Hunger, and Rui Carlos Pereira, the Director of the Brazilian Financial Agency and representative of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. During the meeting, working groups will be established to analyze policies, programs, and the management of national social protection systems. Additionally, they will address food along with nutritional sovereignty and security. The forum will also be focused on enhancing agri-food systems, giving priority to family farming and sustainable consumption practices. The bilateral meeting on social protection policy, food sovereignty and food and nutritional security underscores Cuba's commitment to managing financial, technological and material resources through international projects. This approach seeks to bolster national productive capacities and reduce reliance on resources.
Hello. We want to talk to you about a beautiful lady of Cuba's typical landscape, the royal palm tree. It is the
They have been mechanically harvesting blueberries.
The royal palm is a tall tree, very red, which is 40 to 50 feet high. It is crowned by a beautiful tuft of leaves.
Due to its beauty, many musicians and poets have fallen in love with the palm plant.
The Cuban royal palm tree was used first by the indigenous people, later by agricultural workers to meet some of their basic needs, from food for their farm animals, wood for building houses, and its leaves for roofing.
The palm tree is present in all parts of farms and represents the freedom and independence of the young Cuban Republic.
The royal palm tree, national tree of Cuba.
All the time we have for this first hour here on Radio Havana Cuba's English language broadcast to the studio. This afternoon, stay with us on select frequencies. We'll go right into our second hour, another hour of original programming. Come back and listen to us tomorrow right here on Radio Havana Cuba. Tomorrow, Wednesday, we'll have the Mailbag Show and a bunch of other good programs too on Radio Havana. National Adventist for this Tuesday. Thanks for coming along and listening to us here on the radio. We've got our national and international news coming up. That'll be followed by our editorial commentary from the editorial desk. It's Viewpoint. And we'll bring you a weekly program connecting the dots, heard every Tuesday right here on Radio Havana Cuba. And we'll have the cultural news with the Ultra Hub. Let's get things underway with our national news from the Cuba desk. National news on Radio Havana Cuba.
Cuba has denounced the ongoing U.S. military presence in the Caribbean, characterizing the action as posing a threat to regional peace, security, and stability. This was stated by the island's foreign minister, Bruno Rodriguez Parrilla, when delivering a speech on Monday at the Conference of Prime Ministers of the Community of Latin American and Caribbean States, CELAC, held at the United Nations headquarters in New York. Rodriguez Parrilla insisted that such a move is a provocative action that could trigger a military confrontation, compelling Venezuelan other nations to safeguard their sovereignty and territorial integrity. He stressed that the U.S. allegations aiming to link the legitimate government of Venezuela and its constitutional president, Nicolás Maduro Moros, to criminal organizations involved in illegal drug trafficking constitute an unfounded and preposterous pretext. He compared Cuba's commitment to continuing to collaborate with CELAC efforts to foster progress in areas of mutual interest for the benefit of our populations. In this regard, the head of Cuban diplomacy emphasized the need for CELAC to further solidify its role as a unified voice representing the interests of the Latin American and Caribbean nations. Along the same lines, he emphasized that addressing issues affecting the region, including repressive, xenophobic, and racist policies towards immigration, illegal drug trafficking, trade, and tariff threats, as well as climate change, requires collective and coordinated efforts. This approach, he stated, should be rooted in dialogue, non-interference in internal affairs of states, cooperation, solidarity, and respect for sovereignty. Cuban city of Varadero, in the province of Matanzas, will host in September 2026 the destination Gaviota Tourist Exchange, the key event in the promotion of tourism across the island. This was formally announced by the president of the Gaviota Tourism Group, Carlos Santos, during the closing ceremony of the second edition. According to the website www.varadero.eu, 2026 will mark a significant year for Varadero, as it will host the International Tourism Fair at the beginning of May, followed by the tourist exchange, both of which are major tourism events in Cuba. The representative from the Ministry of Tourism in Matanzas, Luis Martinez, stated that this event will serve as an excellent platform to showcase not only the future, but also the dedication of a tourist destination undergoing the transformation. International Colloquium from Papyrus to Virtual Library, addressed among the Artificial Intelligence Library, a lecture delivered by researcher Ana Hernandez at Casa of America. Hernandez serves as a professor at the University of Havana Faculty of Communication and as the vice president of the Cuban Society of Information Sciences. She emphasized that the field of artificial intelligence has undergone a significant diversification, although it remains in its early stages. She also said that this generative deep learning program constitutes a revolution, impacting not just technology but also culture. In this regard, she warned that in the 21st century, we must learn to handle an extraordinary array of subjects. This is not just about acquiring new kind of knowledge, skill, or expertise. Rather, it encompasses a million things, including digital and AI proficiency. The researchers referred to reports from the United Nations Development Program, the ISLA, and the CELAC to explore the transformative potential of digital technology. Regarding Cuba, Hernandez noted the ISLA report indicates that out of the 9,209 libraries in the country, only 724 have internet access. Consequently, the development of AI remains limited despite its high impact. She emphasized the urgent need to incorporate AI into educational curricula at every level. It is also crucial to provide training on digital technologies for people of all ages, particularly in light of the Caribbean nation's development of its first AI initiative known as Cecilia. The 8th International Colloquium from Papyrus to the Virtual Library will be held until September 26th, serving as a platform for information professionals from around the world to discuss the impact of digital technology. Inaugurated in Havana today, a high-level forum dedicated to the discussion of public policies, programs, and strategies related to social protection, food sovereignty, and nutrition security. The Cuban forum is aimed at fostering cooperation and outlining a tangible agenda for South-South cooperation. Several officials from Brazil will be attending the event, including Paulo Teixeira, the Minister of Agrarian Development and Family Agriculture, Wellington Diaz, the Minister of Development, Social Assistance, Family and Intelligence Hunger, and Luis Carlos Pereira, the Director of the Brazilian Population Agency and representative of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. During the meeting, working groups will be established to analyze policies, programs, and the management of national social protection systems. Additionally, they will address food along with nutrition, sovereignty, and security. The forum will also be focused on enhancing agri-food systems, giving priority to family farming and sustainable consumption practices. The high-level meeting on social protection policies, food sovereignty, and food and nutrition security underscores Cuba's commitment to managing financial, technological, and material resources through international planning. This approach seeks to bolster national development capacities and reduce reliance on imports.
Observing Radio Havana Cuba, translating Betty Beatriz Montestoca for our national news from the Cuba desk. Join me now as we go over to the international news desk for these world news stories. Israeli government has declared that all aid entering Gaza for distribution by the controversial Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, GHF, must be sourced from Israel only. The GHF told the Jewish News Service that the new regulations had stipulated that the food packages it distributes in the Palestinian enclave must come from Israeli companies. Until recently, the food items were procured and packaged in both Israel and the West Bank, according to the spokesman. New Israeli regulations now mandate that all food items, all that goes into Gaza, must be procured and packaged inside Israel, the occupied territory, and are abiding by that authority. Neither the office of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu or the Israeli Defense Ministry has responded to inquiries. The GHF's management of aid distribution in Gaza has come under intense scrutiny since it was first established in May as the only entity approved by Israel to distribute aid inside the blockaded territory. The organization, also backed by the United States, has been responsible for the deaths and injuries of thousands of aid seekers at its sites in Gaza. According to multiple UN sources, at least 2,000 Palestinians have been killed, more than 15,000 injured or wounded, while collecting food or just waiting for assistance at the GHF Gaza Humanitarian Foundation sites. Israeli troops have admitted to deliberately shooting and killing unarmed Palestinians waiting for aid in Gaza, following direct orders from their superiors in the Israeli army. While witnesses have reported that U.S. subcontractors, mercenaries, have also fired on relief-seeking civilians. The Jewish News Service report comes as multiple indicators suggest the Israeli company is taking the hit as a result of the genocide in Gaza, an account for the economy in Israel, and growing international isolation, the lack of investment, and consumer confidence, as well as the high number of conscripts being called away from their work to fight. Earlier this week, the European Commission also announced a proposal to suspend trade with Israel, and the EU's largest commercial partner has now cited the assault on Gaza City as the reason there may be a suspension of aid from the European Union. Earlier, Netanyahu addressed economic concerns by suggesting that Israel might have to adopt its own characteristic of self-sufficiency to deal with its isolated possibilities there. Israel is in a sort of isolation, he said, at a finance conference in Jerusalem. I am a believer in the free market, but we may find ourselves in a situation where our arms industries are blocked. We will need to develop arms industries here in Israel, not only research and development, but also the ability to produce what we need. Netanyahu's comments alarmed many in the business and labor sectors, triggering a dip in shares on the Tel Aviv stock market. The Israeli Business Forum said that the Prime Minister's policies were leading the country towards a political, economic, and social abyss. Following the backlash, Netanyahu said that there had been misunderstandings over his comments and sought to allay market fears. Britain, Canada, Australia, and Portugal have formally declared their recognition of the Palestinian state ahead of the United Nations General Assembly. France and other countries also recognized Palestine on Monday, yesterday, joining the more than 130 countries that now recognize the Palestinian state. The Palestinian ambassador to the United Nations, Hussein Ajami, said, "We realize that the recognition itself will not stop the wars of colonization and the theft of land and oppression of our people. But the question is never, why should America and the rest of the world recognize the state of Palestine? The question is why the UK has not recognized the state of Palestine until now. Why did they wait so long? And the answer is, well, we'll have to wait. Because of the lack of this recognition, because of the lack of this foundational step, things have been left to fester all the way to genocide being committed in full view of the world today." The Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu responded to the developments by saying that a Palestinian state will not happen. Several members of the Israeli government have called on Israel to annex the occupied West Bank. And in Gaza, Israel is escalating its bombardment of Gaza City as Israel attempts to destroy the entire city. Officials in Gaza say almost 500,000 Palestinians now have been forced and displaced from the city. Over the past day, Israel killed at least 61 people, as the official death toll now tops 65,300. Meanwhile, the Donald Trump administration is seeking to end $6 billion in new weapons to Israel, despite its recent United Nations finding that Israel is committing genocide in Gaza. The proposed arms deal includes 40 Apache helicopters and over 4,000 infantry assault vehicles. $6 billion, that's billion with a B, being considered now by the U.S. administration to arm Israel. And meanwhile, veterans in Italy have launched a general strike to protest Israel's war on Gaza. Welcome to the news here on Radio Havana Cuba. Thanks for joining us on this Tuesday. Listen to our international newscast coming to you from our studios in downtown Havana. Let's go back now over to the news desk for more stories. An Israeli airstrike in southern Lebanon has killed 5 people, including 3 children from the same family along with their father. Lebanon's Prime Minister Nawaf Salam decried the attack as a massacre. Lebanese officials said that 4 of the victims, including 2 children, were U.S. citizens, but the U.S. State Department has disputed that claim. The Israeli military acknowledged carrying out the attack, saying that a member of Hezbollah. The Committee to Protect Journalists says that recent Israeli airstrikes on newspaper offices in Yemen have killed 41 journalists and media support workers, making it the deadliest attack on journalists anywhere in the world and more than 22 journalists were also targeted in the strikes. The CPJ, the Committee to Protect Journalists, said that the attack was the second deadliest attack on the press ever recorded by the organization. 31 Yemeni journalists killed in a deadly attack on newspaper offices on Monday. U.S. President Donald Trump is escalating his attacks on press freedom and the First Amendment rights in the United States. And he said it should be illegal for journalists to give his administration negative coverage. The U.S. President said, "We'll take a good story and we'll make it bad. See, I think that's really illegal, personally." Trump's comments come shortly after ABC, which is owned by Disney, indefinitely suspended Jimmy Kimmel's program. FCC Commissioner Brendan Carr's threats to revoke the licenses of broadcast licenses of all ABC affiliates. He's now said that he will return, Jimmy Kimmel will return on Tuesday evening to be back with his program on ABC. It seems to be said what he will say, if he will say anything. He's now essentially been muted from any criticism of the Trump administration, and the Trump administration says it should be illegal for journalists to give his administration negative coverage. U.S. U.S. Defense Department, that is the War Department, is imposing new restrictions on reporters. The United States has for reasons, legal provisions, and the silent pledge, stating they will not gather or report on any information that has not been formally authorized for release by the War Department, the Defense Department. The president of the National Press Club, Mike Bossel, said, criticizing the new regulations, this is a direct assault on independent journalism at the very place where independent scrutiny matters most, the U.S. military. U.S. President Donald Trump is overhauling the HIV visa campaign, which promotes the high-skilled workers to enter the country to work in the United States in the tech industry and other fields. Trump has signed an executive order imposing a $100,000 fee for the visa. It's the H-1B visa. The move set off mass confusion. Many companies ordering non-citizen employees traveling abroad to immediately return to the United States. The White House later clarified that existing visa holders would not be impacted. MHz has revealed that Trump's border czar, Cuban, was reported last year that stuck in a bag with $50,000 in cash for a crowd of FBI agents who were posing as business executives. In exchange for the money, Cuban reportedly offered to help secure future government contracts. A bribery probe has been published, but Trump's Department of Justice now has said that they are shutting down such an investigation. The Donald Trump administration has ended the U.S. annual report on food insecurity and hunger in America. It comes after 2.5 months from Donald Trump signing into law a tax and spending bill sharply reducing the number of Americans receiving food stamps. The U.S. Department of Agriculture has said that it will no longer be issuing annual hunger reports claiming that the date was rife with insecurities. On social data, Bobby Cohen of the Center for American Progress said, this follows the playbook of many non-democracies that cancel or manipulate reports and that otherwise show less than perfect results. Now, the United States will cancel its annual report on hunger, saying that no hunger exists, and it will just go away. Tens of thousands of protesters have taken to the streets across Brazil to protest a congressional bill that would make it harder to charge lawmakers for alleged crimes and even reduce penalties for individuals involved in criminal President Jair Bolsonaro's coup attempt. Bolsonaro was sentenced earlier this month to 27 years in prison for trying to cling to power and for hatching a plan to assassinate his opponent, Lula da Silva, the current president of Brazil, and who won a 2022 presidential election. Maria Alice Barbosa, a student in Rio de Janeiro, said, I think this amnesty for Bolsonaro is ridiculous because these are people who harm Brazilian society, the Brazilian people. As citizens, we have to be here fighting, speaking out, showing our faces. People can't hide if we don't want them to repeat what happened in the past. As young people, we need to keep this in mind so that people know their rights and can fight for them. There's some stories we're following for you here on Radio Havana Cuba. Keep it locked on to RHC Radio, Havana Cuba.